Hey everyone, Rich Gasaway here. I want to take a quick moment to talk about the SA Matters live virtual training. This training is really gaining popularity quickly. It is by far the most affordable and convenient way for your members to get trained on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making. I will work with your training staff to set up a live training via the internet for your members on the date and time of your department's regular training. So, for example, you train on Tuesday nights from 7 to 9, that's when we'll do the training. You train on Thursday mornings from 8 to 10, that's when we'll do the training. You get the idea. I'll come to you virtually and train your members on situational awareness. If you want to learn more about this, just visit samatters.com, scroll down to the orange area about halfway down the page labeled Virtual Training Programs. Honestly, it can't get any easier or affordable. Oh, and I forgot to mention, you'll get access to a playback of the training for your members who can't attend the live training. And that way everybody gets on the same page. All right, that's enough of the pre-show stuff. Roll that podcast intro. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com.
This is Jason Corthell from the City of Pearland Fire Department. You're listening to the SA Matters radio show with Dr. Rich Gasaway. The SA Matters mission is simple. They want to help us see the bad things coming and time to avoid bad outcomes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 190 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming and time to avoid bad outcomes. Did you know I've been sharing this message of situational awareness and high-risk decision-making in live program events for 12 years now, and have trained just over 62,000 students, including first responders, industrial workers, military personnel, business leaders, medical professionals, utility workers, aviation workers, and more. Really, this message is for anyone who works in a high-risk environment. So if you or someone you know could benefit from this training, ask them to reach out to me by visiting the SA Matters website and click on the Contact Us tab. If you're new to the podcast, you got some homework to do by going back and listening to some of the past episodes. I've released a new episode of this podcast every Tuesday. Never missed a week yet. No podcast focusing on improving safety even comes close to that track record. And I do it for you, the listeners of this podcast. You inspire me. And for so long as I'm able, I'm going to share with you a message of encouragement, a message of inspiration, and a message of hope for those who work in high-risk environments. And hopefully help you accomplish the most important goal of all, and that's to go home to the ones who love you. And speaking of the message, today I'm coming to you today from Elyria, Ohio, in the Lorain County Community College, where I'm delivering a situational awareness program for first responders from all over Northeast Ohio. This training program on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making is a game changer. And how do I know that? Because the attendees tell me all the time. On program breaks, or when the program's done, they send me emails and say, after 30 years in the service, I can't believe I'm learning this stuff for the first time. Understanding how to develop and maintain situational awareness can truly, and I mean truly, save your life. There just is no simpler way to say it. One of the questions I get asked a lot by readers of the blog and listeners to the podcast are, when are you going to be in my area? Or when are you going to be next? Great questions. Just go to the samatters.com, click on the blue box on the homepage where you can see the upcoming events, and you'll see everywhere that the program is going to be. So maybe you can join up with me at a future program. I love it when those folks attend a program and then they say, hey, I listened to the podcast. I really do appreciate that feedback. Here's something else you might want to know. If you're interested in hosting a program and you want to save some money, I do these things I call companion programs. Those are programs on adjoining days to other programs. So if you see I'm delivering a program within a couple hours of your department and you might want to tag along on the adjoining day as a companion, contact me and you can save as much as 20% off the program by being a companion to an existing program. Okay, in today's feature segment, it's part 2 of my interview with Norfolk, Virginia Assistant Fire Chief John DiBacco, talking about after-action review processes used by Norfolk Fire to learn lessons from significant incidents. In October, I was in Chesapeake to deliver a 2-day situational awareness training, and I caught up with my lifelong friend, John. John and I have served together we served together on our very first fire department way back in Weirton, West Virginia in the 70s. During the interview, John talked about the process he uses for conducting his after-action reviews and sharing the lessons learned. Again, this is part 2, so if you want to go back to the previous episode, 189, and listen to part 1 of the interview, then the part 2 will make sense. And John's talking about when he's meeting with the crews. This is where we're going to pick it up. When he's meeting with the crews, how he then guides the crews through the discussion of the events that occurred. All right, let's jump right into our feature segment, part 2 of my interview with Norfolk, Virginia Assistant Fire Chief John DiBacco. And when you start talking to the companies, do you do it in a sequence, like first arriving is the first to talk, and then the second arriving is the second to talk? Is there a sequence here, or is it just pretty much like open mic where anyone can say anything? Do you have a process?
And we do, and we'll start with the first arriving unit. Now, by this point of the review, and we're not real. It might sound like a lot, but we get into there pretty quick. At this point in the review, we know what the call was, what it sounded like on dispatch. We've looked at the photos of the property, talked about the property itself, the size. I also include things with the weather that we respond to, time of day, the weather, humidity, wind direction, and I remind them who their companies were going, because we do run auto aid in Norfolk. So we do run auto aid with Navy Regional Fire, City of Chesapeake, City of Virginia Beach. So you are getting resources from other jurisdictions who may have different staffing strategies and response times based on which area of the city you're going in. We reviewed all those. And so we get to the first, I talk with the first arriving officer, and I'll ask them, tell me about your first initial actions and what you did. At this point, we've already heard them on the tape. And I played up front. There's no trickery here. It's not, Rich, tell me what you did. You tell me, and I said, well, let me show you what the tape says.
Yeah.
There's no trickery here.
You're not trying to deceive them. You're just trying to put the whole picture together.
And I think that's kind of the, when I said up front, it used to be a critique and you sat in that environment. And really, we're here to learn from this incident, good and bad. And we're going to talk about, the good stuff, but we're going to talk about the stuff that wasn't so well, and how can we go from there. And so I allow that officer to discuss what they did, and then usually it's a facilitator-led questions about why did you pick, and it's kind of going down that decision-making critique guide.
Now, are you the facilitator?
Usually on my shift, I'll be the facilitator on those. The battalion chief, who is in charge of that district or that battalion, they will co-run it with me so they can ask questions as well. But I will facilitate as the shift commander. Okay. And then we'll just start asking questions. And some of the questions, for example, is why did you pick a hydrant for water supply? Why did you pick that hydrant, for example? You drove past one, you didn't lay a supply line. Why did you go to that hydrant? If they don't explain it. Or I want to hear what their thoughts were, what they did with that. Why did and they said, well, we took a line off the truck and we used a 2.5 to go to exposure protection. And that was perfectly a great answer, and that's what we expected. But I'll ask them in the group, why did you choose that route? And I really, more than anything, I want to hear what their thought process and hear them articulate. Well, and it's people who may not have been to a 2.5-story wood frame with 2 exposures, on each side on fire. This might be something for them to learn. Hey, when he got there, he did this, and it worked, and this was the appropriate thing, and hopefully down the road, this is what I would do under a similar situation. And so, why did you do it? Did the results of your actions meet your expectations? Did what you did there, what you were envisioning was, I'm going to put this 2.5-inch line in between the exposure and the fire building, and I'm going to stop the spread of it. Okay, did it work? Did it work as well as you thought it would? What would you do next time if you're posed with the same thing? Would you put that line right back there, or would you say, you know what, I might want to go with a different attack in this situation? And we just kind of work through that. And so we'll work through between the companies along those lines. What were your assignments? What did you find? What difficulties, if any, did you have? What information did you need that you didn't have that would have been helpful? And what did you share back with everybody else in the group to let us know about the task that you were doing and what kind of difficulties you had? It's kind of interesting that, so this example I'm giving you, the houses themselves were very large houses on that front of Chesapeake Bay. So very well built, large wood frame houses, but the smallest of the 3 was just at 3,000 square feet, and the largest was 4,500 square feet. Most of the work we do, and I think most fire departments do, are probably 1,200, 1,500, 2,500 square foot houses, and so these were pretty good sized homes. It was interesting because the incident commander was assigning resources for search the same as they would assign resources for search in a 1,500 square foot home. So we had that conversation. Is it reasonable to think that 2 or 3 person search team who can search down the hallway, check a bedroom, out of the bedroom, go to the next bedroom? In these homes, a bedroom might be as big as 3 or 4 rooms in another one.
Right. And
so then we talk about those kind of lessons there on these type of structures, and we talk about knowing your district, knowing your area, knowing your construction and your layout. Next time, I would hope that command officer, when he's faced with something similar, would say, you know what, I need to put more than one search company in that house. If I'm really concerned about searching for life, I need to put more than one company in there to do it. And we try to reinforce those sort of things.
Have you ever along the way come along a situation where the decision making of someone was so egregious that you had to either go down a route of counseling or retraining or some consequence to them because they just completely messed it up? Or is this all designed around, no matter how bad it gets, we're just going to look at it as a learning opportunity, learn from it, and move on? In other words, when I sometimes watch a TV show called Undercover Boss, and the undercover boss comes in and he or she does, is all done in makeup so that the employees of whatever company doesn't know who the undercover boss is, and sometimes the employees are just wonderful and bubbly and carry the company culture and everything, and sometimes some of those employees are people that if I was the undercover boss, I'd be like, come here, you're fired. Because what their behavior is so off the kilter chart that you'd say there's got to be some accountability for this. So is this at all, John, about accountability, or is this all really just about let's learn from it, no matter how bad it is? Let's just learn from it, and this be better the next time. What's
right? And that's a great question, and some people they would like to run these things, and they put it all on the table, good, bad, ugly, right there in front of everybody, and it hasn't been my style. So if I have a company officer, if I have a firefighter acting as an officer, if I have a company officer who has done something really inappropriate as far as strategy, tactics, just out of the norm, dangerous.
Yeah.
We have a conversation well before we go into this review.
Okay.
And if there's any kind of counseling, if it's at that level there's counseling, this will be done between the chief officer and the company officer in the appropriate setting with...
they're not getting that publicly in the review or in this event.
That is correct. However, in the review, we will point out, we'll give them a chance to talk about it, and we tell them, hey, we're going to talk about this in there, but we've already done the, if you want to call it discipline, we've already done the disciplinary side of it, the corrective action side of it, but now we're going to talk about it from, Rich and I already met, we talked about this ahead of time, this isn't a surprise that I'm asking him these questions, and we have a conversation there, and it's more, we'll still talk about the good, bad, and the ugly for that event, but it's not the time. We're not handling the disciplinary side of it or counseling side of it at that point. So it kind of, I hate to say it softens it up because a lot of people don't like it because they don't like when you say it that way. But again, I think it's about making the room available for learning and not making people afraid to speak up and admit, I didn't really do a good job there, and this is why, and this is what I know, and next time, and we need to have that kind of culture within these meetings and within these reviews to allow people to speak up and say it. And I'll just say this: that includes the chiefs who are running the event need to say, I messed up as well, and put it out there, because if you stand there before them and you are up on your box, and you coming across like you're the one doing everything absolutely right, and everybody else is having these issues here, that's just not accurate or factual. Because we all have room to grow. We all make decisions that if we can go back and think them again with additional information, we might make a different decision or say something a different way. So you're not immune, as if you're the person running this in our organization, you're not immune to admitting that you may have had some things that could have gone better as well from your perspective.
Do you ever run into the situation where someone, by their personality or their ego, is not really someone who would be admitting of their own shortcomings? I think of some conversations I've had with chief officers who say, I would never admit to my crew that I made a mistake. I would never admit my shortcomings because then they'd think I'm a weaker leader, or they would think that they would question my competency. So they hold that ground that they don't ever want to, at least to their underlings, admit that they're fallible. Do you ever run into anything like that where you actually have to coach somebody into realizing that they're not that perfect being? And that could really be at any rank. I just use the example of a chief officer, but
it's just Norfolk. We don't have any egos here. We're just
well, of course, yes,
let's make up
programmed out.
But I think the truth behind it is every organization probably has those people who don't have a true reflection or a realistic reflection of their own abilities or capabilities.
Or inabilities.
Exactly. And the part about that, which I'm going to say, I don't know if I'll articulate as well as you probably could, is that the people who work with those particular individuals, whether they're peers or subordinates, they know it. So they don't really, I don't think they really expect this person to magically in one of these reviews stand up and say, yeah, I could do better. We just know that's not going to come out of there.
They probably faint.
And we know those people, and hopefully we're not those people, but we know those people who do that. And so in the review, you can discuss it. And I don't have an expectation that in that format that they're going to stand up and suddenly profess all their shortcomings, and that's not what we're looking for. But I would like to get acknowledgement from there that, yeah, maybe I could have done it differently. Now, I have run into cases where even after going through the review, I've had people say, No, I would do it just the same. And that usually results in a little additional conversation offline, something more personal and in-depth. Not necessarily, I'm not saying counseling, but just something that we're not going to, in that environment, I don't know the right word, but people, they're going to hold their position. And it really doesn't matter what you ask them, they're not going to waver because they got a reputation. Mm-hmm. So I think it's only fair to take them away from the audience and everybody else and try to get more one-on-one and see if they'll open up a little bit more or be more receptive to what the points you're trying to make.
Okay. Do you ever have any challenges where, like, 2 or 3 different companies might have some level of disagreement about what was happening or what somebody was supposed to be doing but they weren't doing? Do you ever find yourself doing any kind of like refereeing between company disagreements in this kind of scenario, or is it all just kind of stay above board at the high professional level?
Well, I don't want to make it sound like everything's peachy and rosy and everything like that, because we have our issues like everybody. I think the previous formats that we used to use, where it was more critical of actions, that lent itself to more of the interpersonal finger pointing. Mm-hmm. If you would have done this wouldn't have happened. And if you wouldn't have done this, or if you would have done it this way, then this wouldn't have affected my crew over here, and we could have gone home sooner. We wouldn't have burnt the roof off the house or whatever. And I think that actually has happened. I would like to run these reviews in a atmosphere that doesn't go in that direction, because I think if we're being honest and we're reflecting and being honest and saying and getting honest feedback, and people are admitting up there, this is what I did. It probably wasn't the best at the time, or maybe it was the best at the time, but I did it because of these reasons. I think that helps deflect somebody else from wanting to, really be critical in there. And I'm not trying to, again, it's not all about, hugging and kissing everybody before you leave. It's about making an environment that people are receptive to learn, people are receptive to share their experiences, and I think it makes for just a better organization and a better outcome the next time you're faced with a similar situation.
How long after an event do you try to hold these reviews or these sessions? Is it like the next shift, or how much time passes? Because I think as time passes, people's memory might fade or change of what really happened. So do you try to get these done like quick after an event, like next shift you're going to pull them all together, or what's your timeline on this?
We don't have a particular timeline built in for handling the review, the formal reviews. The lesser review, or I say lesser, the smaller scale review, as I said earlier, can be done on the incident scene, and we encourage that. Or when they get back to the station, they can encourage that. And certainly as a company officer, I did it that way, both ways, at the scene and at the station. But if you're going to get the companies together, we really like it to happen within. We do a 3-week work cycle, 21 days. We like it to happen within the work cycle, but we don't like it to go out more than 7 to 14 days, 1 to 2 weeks, because you're absolutely right. It's almost as if you start pushing out too far, people may feel that, well, it really wasn't that important. He waited this long, and as you said, you kind of forget about it. If the chief was just waiting for 3 weeks to do this, if it was really important, he would have talked to me 3 weeks ago, but now he's waiting, and it's... So I think you need to do it sooner to the event. One of the things that drives my reviews, and I've done them as soon as the following shift, which might be one day off and come back and do it. Now I've done them as far as like 5 to 7 days out. Depends how much time I need to put the material together, because I do a lot of data up front, getting the phone recordings, the radio recordings, the photographs, the property data information, and try to put really a comprehensive review together and make sure it's timely, but also that it's not rushed and you're getting all the information that you need for it to be successful. Mm-hmm. And And these run anywhere from takes about an hour to run through one. If you really don't have a whole lot going on, but you have things to talk about. And the more complex ones, I've been an hour and 45 minutes. Try not to go much more than that because you start losing people generally about an hour before you start losing some people in the audience. But we've done some that have been a little bit longer. They were more complex incidents.
Okay. And then what is the goal of all this? What are you trying to accomplish with these? You know, if you say, Rich, if we come back 2 years from now, you say it's really worked. What would be your measurable to say that it really worked?
And that's a good question, because if you don't have, my belief is if you don't have a purpose at the end, really we're just wasting time of a lot of people who can be doing other things. And so one of the things that's the outcome of these reviews on the formal review is an after-action report. And the after-action report has a lessons learned section. And the lessons learned section come from what you gather in the review after talking to people. We're making notes, we're taking it down, and we're going to write it after action. And once the after-action report is formalized and completed, and it goes through the fire chief, the deputy chief, and the fire chief office, it's reviewed and it's signed off, and we'll release it out. It's for any member of the department can review it, so they can see the details of the incident and everything that went on with the review. And I think you're missing a big opportunity here if you don't look at changes in the way you're operating procedures, if you're not changing some of the cultural items that you're doing, if you're not increasing your resilience as an organization, you're missing an opportunity when you go through here. Just an example, Norfolk, on a first alarm assignment, we get 3 engines, and we have a lot of people live in our city, and we do a lot of business every year. But our companies tend to be pretty close together, just geographically. And so if I'm downtown, if I'm working at a downtown station, and I was a captain at Engine 2 for 6 years, Engine 1, Engine 11, Engine 7, the 3 surrounding me, depending where I went in my district, they were right behind me pulling in. I didn't worry about water supply issues. We got a very robust water supply system here. Lots of hydrants, great flow, very few issues with water supply. And so first engine, and it's just the way we've done business here for a long time. It's not a policy that you stop and lay in from a hydrant on a fire. Or some people call it laying out, but you're laying in or laying out, but it's not something we do. And like I said, I've been here 25 years, and even way before then, as far as I know, they weren't doing that just because of the makeup of our city and the way we operate here. But out of these reviews, we've been talking about the need for changing that idea based on what you're finding pulling up and where you're going in the city and who you're responding with and what the weather conditions are and where the fire is at and where are you forecasting the fire to go. Do I need to do something different? And that's probably going to take a change in some policy. And even though if we had a company officer who did something like that, stop and picked up a hydrant and laid in, even though that's not in our standard operating procedures currently, if that was the right decision, that was the right decision. And so I think at the end of the day, if you don't take the opportunity to review the lessons learned and see if those things are still lining up with your policies, because time changes, policies need updated, procedures need updated. So I think this gives you an avenue to come back and say, hey, this isn't working for us the way we've been doing it for this many years. We need to really need to look at it. Something's changed.
Estimate for me, John. I know you got like 3 shifts, right?
3 shifts, right?
Okay, so across 3 shifts, how many of these reports might be accumulated in the course of a year? So I get an idea of how big your database is of these, of the ones that actually get documented.
Right.
Are these a half a dozen a year or more?
I think, well, maybe I just had a busy month, but I did 2 in the month of August, just on my shift. But I would say that probably between 6 and 10 formal reviews that result in an after-action report. I know there's a lot of reviews at the company level and maybe even at the battalion level don't rise to that occasion. The guys and gals are talking about these things that are going on. It's becoming more common for us, and it's more acceptable. And I think that acceptability is coming from those people sitting in and seeing what can be actually learned when you sit down and do this in a formal environment and have the right objectives. And they're taking it back and they're doing it local at the station level and in the battalion level. So I think those numbers are going to go up, but I think it's safe to say now that we're probably generating between 6 and 12 per year if you look at it that way. Like I said, okay. I had 2 in August, and that's just the way it worked out. A couple second alarm fires.
Now, let's just say you have 10 of them in a year. Do you have any mechanism or process by which somebody then looks at those 10 holistically to see if there's any trend data across the different ones to identify, oh man, this whatever it is happening on all 3 shifts? Is there somebody that's literally like cross-evaluating these to see if anything's jumping out for policy change opportunities or training opportunities?
The quick answer is no, and that's certainly an opportunity that we have, is to take more or better advantage of this data that's being generated. What could be hoped is, and this is out of my lane, so to speak, but the fire chief and the deputy chief, and they review all of them, and we could always say, well, we hope that they see something, but we all have senior chiefs, assistant chiefs in here, senior chiefs, battalion chiefs. We all have responsibilities to the organization. So they are made available. To answer the question, there's not a person or a group that reviews these things looking for trends or items that need changed. And so a lot of it ends up still being a traditional word of mouth between shifts talking and after reports generate saying, hey, this is... And I know with the other assistant chiefs, after we do one of these, they'll say, what kind of lessons did you get out of it? What things happened on your fire? And we'll talk about it, and they certainly can see it because it's posted and made available to them.
Now, when you say it's available to all the firefighters, is this an electronic document on an intranet site or something that they can click on and read, or is this something that's paper that's posted on a bulletin board?
No, it's on the intranet site. It's on the fire department's intranet site, and all members have access to that. And it's a very that's kind of the place. It's a go-to place for information for the department. We've moved away from the communications board, the thumbtacks and the paper on the board, because John would find something interesting, and instead of staying there reading, I'd take it with me somewhere else and never made it back to the board. But this way, everybody has access to them, so they are electronic. They're posted electronically.
Okay. Did I miss anything that you wanted to make sure that you said in this conversation that I didn't kind of guide us to with a question? Any points that you think need to be accentuated here that I might have missed?
No, I think we did a pretty good review, top to bottom. I just can't emphasize that what I emphasize with my chief officers and company officers is that if you don't create the environment for the people who want to speak and speak openly without repercussion, you're not going to learn, you're not going to grow, and you're going to always have what you have. And as an organization, as a fire service, you and I have both seen this over our nearly 40 plus years. Change happens, and it happens fast, and we can't have our eyes shut thinking everything's fine. And but at the same time, we don't have a workforce today that expects to be beat up. It's not acceptable to go in a room and beat somebody up, figuratively speaking, over an incident. We have to do this as professionals, and there's mechanism out there. And this is one mechanism that we've chosen to use. I'm sure there are others that work for other departments. But the thing is, you need to be talking about these incidents after they happen, because if you don't come back from, whether it's a structure fire, technical rescue, a near miss event, if you're not coming back and learning and sharing those, you're really doing a disservice to everybody else who's rolling out the door the next shift or the next call. So I think it's really important to be able to get these things out there.
Okay. Well, thanks for giving me the gift of some of your time tonight to have this conversation. It's very interesting. I learned some things. I picked up some tips, some ideas that I'm sure along the way I'm going to get the chance to share those with others as well. So thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thank you again to my guest, Norfolk Fire Department Assistant Chief John DiBacco, and maybe even more importantly, my lifelong friend, John DiBacco. I have a favor to ask of you. I've launched this podcast to give a voice to those who've experienced near-miss events. The stories that have been shared here have been absolutely amazing and very educational. In case you've missed the episodes I did with St. Charles Fire Department just a few episodes back, it's absolutely bone-chilling. You need to go back and listen to that. And some of the previous ones. Just incredible lessons learned. We need to get more of these lessons shared with a larger audience. So if you've experienced or witnessed a near miss and would like to have a platform to share your lessons learned with others, contact me by visiting the samatters.com site and clicking on the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage. Think about it for a moment. The lessons learned from your on-the-job near-miss event could save someone's life. That's really powerful. What a wonderful gift that would be. If you want to share your experience, contact me. By the time this episode airs, I will have completed programs in Elyria, Ohio, Solon, Ohio, Twinsburg, Ohio, Wintersville, Ohio, and Canfield, Ohio. Those, by the way, are the companion programs that I talked about earlier. That's what's going on there. And then I will also have completed a program for the Buckley Fire Department in Buckley, Washington. If you want to attend an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters Tour Stop event, or kick off your 2018 training, you can join me on January 10th and 11th in Henrico County, Virginia, January 20th at BX Swan Lake in Alberta, Canada, January 21 in Penticton, Alberta, Canada, January 27 in St. Louis, Michigan, or January 28th in Portage, Michigan. If you're interested in hosting a Situational Awareness Matters Tour Stop event, I'm booking pretty actively 2018 now and even some programs into 2019. So if you think your company, agency, association, regional conference, state conference, or national conference might want to host a program, just contact me through the samatters.com website and we'll get something set up for you. I've got great staff and they'll make the entire process super easy. I promise. The last time I was delivering programs in southwest Minnesota, I stopped by and visited a sponsor of this podcast show, Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire is a fire truck manufacturing company that makes amazing all-poly-bodied fire apparatus, and it's changing the industry. If you haven't checked them out yet, you need to. Just go to MidwestFire.com. That's MidwestFire.com. Anyhow, while I was there, I got a chance to sit down and talk to some of their employees about what separates Midwest Fire from their competitors. Let's listen in to what happens after the sale and the process for building a Midwest Fire engine. All right, I've heard about the No Dealer Network. I've heard about how to get in contact with Midwest Fire. I've heard about the process of speccing a truck, and that's all good. What happens after the sale?
Currently, after the sale, everything gets turned over to myself as project manager. I will then lead you through the build process. If you call in, have questions on your truck, want to make changes to your truck, want updates on your truck, that will all filter through me then rather than the salesman at that time. We take pride in everything we do here. You've heard that many times. But what we want to focus on is making this the best experience we can for the fire department. It's not always easy to get a hold of your salesman, whether he's traveling or on the road or at shows where I'm in-house full-time. Have 100% control with the project manager as well as manufacturing manager of your truck going through the process.
So somebody calls you and they have a question or they're saying, can we make this change or whatever? You literally just walk down the hall, out the door, and you're on the manufacturing floor talking with engineering or with the people who are actually building their truck, and you can do kind of real-time problem solving or adjusting on
Exactly.
the specification?
Yep. What we do then, if there is changes to the truck, obviously there'd be a change order involved, but the response time is a lot quicker. Most of the departments we work with have a meeting once a month, the volunteer fire departments. So if they call in, have a meeting the next night, we're able to get an answer to them, a response to them right away, so we're not holding up the project while it's in production.
Super. Well, there you have it, folks. That's what differentiates Midwest Fire from their competitors. So check them out at MidwestFire.com. Thank you to Midwest Fire President Sarah Atchison and all your staff for your awesome commitment to improving first responder safety. I really appreciate your support of my mission. Hey, if you're not an SA Matters community member yet, what are you waiting for? There's over 50,000 people connected here through the newsletter, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to train employees to be critical thinkers and resilient problem solvers. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, there's a really easy way to do that. Just get out your smartphone and text SA Matters to 22828. That's S as in Sam, A as in Adam, the word matters, all put together, SA Matters, to 22828. If you don't have a smartphone, you just go to SA Matters website, click on the red box on the right side of the homepage. If you want to get connected with me on Twitter, you can follow @Rich Gasaway on Twitter. If you want to get connected with me on LinkedIn, you can search for Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn. If you want to watch my videos, you can go to the SA Matters TV YouTube channel, and that's SA Matters TV, all put together, one word, on YouTube. And the YouTube videos, they're pretty popular. There's just over 600,000 downloads of the videos on YouTube. And I just recently posted one about my world tour where I went to Australia and New Zealand and the Netherlands and Belgium. So I kind of summed up that trip in a video. So if you want to swing by and check that out, you can. You can also get connected with me on Facebook by liking the SA Matters Facebook page. Finally, if you would like to advertise your product or service on this podcast, just reach out to me. The podcast has enjoyed over 250,000 downloads. So if you want to get your message into the ears of my listeners, just go to samatters.com and click on the Contact Us tab. Well, that's it. Episode 191 is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Norfolk, Virginia Assistant Fire Chief, and perhaps more importantly, my good friend, John DiBacco, for sharing your process for conducting after-action reviews. Remember, this was part 2 of a 2-part interview, so be sure to swing back to last week's and listen to part 1 if you didn't get a chance to do that. If you know someone who you think might benefit from subscribing to the podcast, just let them know that they can get that in their podcast feed on their smartphone if they're interested, or they can listen to it right on the homepage of samatters.com. Thank you to my awesome podcast sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thanks to all the companies, agencies, and organizations that have hosted live events. Thanks to all who have attended that new virtual training that I have spoken of. And thanks to the more than 1,000 students enrolled in the SA Matters Online Academy. And most importantly, thank you, the listeners of this podcast, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.